Hello, everybody. How you doing today? This is Sakoni Prince, and I am super excited to bring to you another episode of the H.E.A.L podcast. H.E.A.L is an acronym for Help, Elevate, and Learn, and it's based on my book by the same name, and it's a guide for healing your inner child. I know a lot of us, we all have had a childhood. We actually, all of us have. The question is, what type of childhood have we had, and what in our childhood continues to show up today? Now, some of us had negative actions or traumas that happened to us in our childhood. Others have had positive. And a lot of us have had a mixture of both. But the reason I wrote the book is because there are a lot of people that are allowing the negative things from their childhood to show up in their current life. And like I say all the time, this podcast is not the end of the conversation, but to start the conversation about inner child trauma, inner child wounds, and inner child healing. And I am super excited to share this broadcast with you today. But I also have to say that we are sponsored by none other than BetterHelp. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who is trained to listen and give you helpful, unbiased advice. First, you go to their site. You can use my link, betterhelp.com/SakoniPrinceHeal. You answer a few questions, and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who's had years of experience helping people with struggles just like yours. You can do it all from your phone or your computer, via a phone call, a video chat, or messaging. However you feel most comfortable. It is the easiest possible way to start talking to a therapist. You'll be matched to a therapist usually within 48 hours, so you can get started fast. Let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist who can support you all from the comfort of your own home. Visit betterhelp.com/SakoniPrinceHeal or choose Sakoni Prince Heal during your sign up and enjoy a special discount on your first month. So I tell you that we are so excited that BetterHelp has come alongside and actually been a partner and sponsor of this particular podcast. You know, when I think about all the things that we go through as a child, it really makes me understand that we have such a tremendous opportunity to set the foundation for the rest of our lives. Now, of course, while we were going through it, we didn't realize that was happening. We were just living, going from day to day. But it's amazing as an adult, we're able to look back on our lives and see where we were as opposed to where we want to be. And what I mean by that is all of the things that we went through, all of the stuff that happened to us. If we just take a step back and look at and talk to that younger version of ourselves, that inner child, we can actually give them a voice. Because a lot of us back then, they didn't have a voice. I was reading this book, and and in the book they talked about the fight or flight approach to a particular incident, in fact, whether it was a trauma or something stressful. And in the fight, you prepare to defend yourself. In the flight, you want to get out of there. But when you're younger, sometimes you're not able to fight. You don't have the strength and the tenacity to. But on the other hand, you don't have anywhere to go. You can't flee. You can't run. So you kind of find yourself stuck in a position, and then they call, in fact, your response to that a fawn. So it's either fight, flight, or fawn. Now the fawn is someone that, okay, I can't get out of the situation. I can't really fight or defend myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make everybody happy. I'm going to be like I'm I'm going to be a fawn. I'm going to appease everybody, to become a people pleaser so that I don't have to deal with that situation. And you know, a lot of us have suffered through that. A lot of us have dealt with that. And once our guest logs in, we are going to be able to actually get her insight on what it means for us to be able to actually deal with those situations. You know, one of the things I wrote in my book was about the importance of being able to journal, to write down, because oftentimes it's hard for us to actually put our feelings into words. It's hard for us to communicate. And journaling is a good way for us to get what's in us out. And I know a lot of us, we don't want anybody reading our diaries or our journals. That's one of the reasons why, especially in my book, I encourage you to write down what it is you need to get out of you. Get it out, write it down, but then you can take it and you can burn it. You can set it afire. You can release it. So I say write it, read it, and then release it. There was a good friend of mine. They had this candlelight visual for individuals that had passed away, and they allowed them to light a little candle and set it afloat on the water. And that was them releasing their loved one, releasing the pain and hurt of them not actually being there anymore. And I know that it may seem silly to some people, but it has a lot of weight when it comes to us being able to get those things that are weighing us down and burdening us off our chest. So with that being said, I do want to, and our guest was in, but now she's out. So we'll wait for her to come back on again. But I am so excited because I know that she has something important to share and something that we can actually take advantage of. But while she's getting ready to come back in, I do want to share this with you as well.
In a world where adulting can often seem overwhelming, there's a secret key to unlocking true serenity: healing the inner child. Within the pages of the acclaimed book, Help Elevate and Learn, a guide to healing your inner child, discover a journey, a transformation, or rebirth. This isn't just about reading, it's about embarking on a path to self-discovery and inner peace. Simultaneously, tune into the soothing waves of the Help Elevate and Learn, a guide to healing your inner child podcast. A sanctuary where candid conversations blend with expert insights, creating a harmonious symphony of healing. Each episode is a step closer to unburdening that youthful spirit within. Remember, it's never too late to offer compassion to that child within you, to rewrite your story with a happier, healthier narrative. Healing the Inner Child, the book, the podcast, the journey. Step into the world of self-healing and witness the transformation unfold.
And we are so excited because our guest is finally here. We're getting ready to pull up to the stage so she can actually share some insightful information that's going to help you get to a better place and a better space in life. And I'm going to pull up to the screen right now. Shawnti, can you hear me? You're muted. Unmute yourself.
Shawnti can hear you just fine. I am so apologetic. Please don't talk about me any more than you already have.
Yeah, it's too late. It's true. It's already in the chat. It's on Twitter. It's on Instagram.
I said, I know he's talking about me because I'm talking about me. I don't ever do this. Ever. This is never. This is a first.
Well, listen, life happens. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote this book, because none of us had a perfect childhood. We all need a do-over, a redo, a restart, a start again. And so having enough grace to offer it not only to other people, but to ourselves, I think is so important. So with that being said, tell everybody about who you are and why they should tune in to what you have to say.
First, thank you for having me, Coney. I appreciate you so much. I am Shawnti Refuge. I am a certified mental health coach. I'm a mental health advocate, keynote speaker, and author, and I help women to release, heal, and live their best lives with guided journaling.
Okay, guided journaling. So talk a little bit more about that, in fact, before we get to our questions.
Guided journaling is, as opposed to regular journaling, when you're just regular journaling, you're free writing.
Right.
My method that I use are specific journal prompts pertaining to whatever issue that we are working on. So, for instance, inner child healing. That's what I talked about all week long. So all week long, my clients got journal prompts geared toward inner child healing. That way it keeps you focused on the topic. You don't veer off into something else. You stay focused and you're able to fully answer whatever the prompt is in more detail, probably more than you were expecting to. And that happens more times than not when you are guided.
Yeah. In fact, we'll get to that in a little bit, but I know how important it is to have that level of assistance, if you will, especially when you're dealing with something that's traumatic. So one of the first questions that we have is, in your professional opinion,
Mhm.
How important is inner child healing?
On a scale of 1 to 10, 1,000.
A thousand. That's what I'm talking
Yes.
about. Okay, so explain why.
Yeah. Because it's not normally, it isn't until we are adults that we look back and say, hey, I didn't get this, I didn't get that, and this is how it's affecting me now. So we have to go back and get our little self. So Shawnti had to go get little Shawnti and give her everything that she needed to, be the person who big Shawnti is, if that makes sense. It's
Right,
like you're being the person you needed back then. You didn't know you needed that person back then, but looking back, now you know, okay, I needed you. So you got to come back and fix me, help me, you know,
right,
and only you
right,
can do that.
right. And I oftentimes encourage people to make peace with their inner child because some of us, we have pacified our inner child, we have put them in a corner, we've locked them away. We pretend, okay, I'm not a child anymore. I don't have to deal with that. I don't have to go through that. But what happens is that inner child throws a tantrum,
Woo!
and we find ourselves dealing with the fallout of it, and then it's like, where did that come from? And that tantrum comes from a childhood wound or a childhood trauma that is triggered during our adult life, and we find ourselves trying to understand us better. Hopefully we do. Sometimes people don't even identify it as being that. And that's one of the reasons why, again, I wanted to start this podcast, and in fact, wrote the book because I wanted to start the conversation. And I am not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I'm not a trained professional, but I know that I've dealt enough with this to be able to actually write the book and have a podcast on it. But that's why I want to have people like you on here, people who have the training and who have the insight to help frame up a lot of stuff that I put in the book.
Mhm.
So my next question is, in your professional opinion, when should someone start inner child work?
ASAP, yesterday.
You sound like I had a couple on a couple of weeks ago. They said that yesterday. You
Yeah,
should start
yesterday.
it.
It's real. And a lot of times we ignore that inner child because you think, oh, I'm grown, I'll deal with that later. I got grown people stuff to do. But baby, your inner child, when he or she comes out, they're gonna come out when you least expect it at the most inopportune time. So
Yeah,
you need to listen to your inner child.
yeah. I would never forget watching the movie Central Intelligence with Dwayne The Rock Johnson and Kevin Hart.
Mm-hmm.
And the movie
Mm-hmm.
started off with them in high school, and there was a very embarrassing moment that Dwayne The Rock Johnson's character had at a school assembly. Some bullies got him and took him. He was in the shower. They got him and they slid him out in the middle of the floor, completely naked, during this school assembly. And Kevin Hart's character in the Raptors jacket around him. And I mean, of course, that was traumatizing in and of itself. But later on in the movie, after he was big and buff, he ran into that same guy who did that to him, and he just shrunk down like a little child again. And I thought to myself, you could snap him with your finger, but
Mm-hmm.
yet that kind of psychological hold had him cowering. And I mean, he was towering over this guy now because the bully was played by Jason Bateman, but
Mm.
he was towering over the guy, and yet the guy still had that level of influence over him. And I just thought that was so telling because so many of us find ourselves being victims of our childhood and of those wounds. And if we don't take the time to address them, just like Dwayne The Rock Johnson did, he found himself, I mean, a child, I mean, back to that assembly,
Yeah,
back to that embarrassment. And he could have very well just snapped his neck in a minute, but
exactly.
inwardly, he didn't see himself that way. So, yeah,
Exactly. And people don't understand that that stuff is real because I can say I used to did not believe in the inner child. I used to say, "Oh, that's white people shit. Black people don't have no inner child." I did. And my inner child said, "Oh yeah, let me show you." And she showed me she showed me real good that yeah, that she exists. And now I have learned to recognize when she is trying to come out or when she needs something. I recognize it now because I will never let her do me like she did me back then. I had a nervous breakdown back in 2018.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, and it was not pretty. It wasn't funny. It wasn't cute. It was horrible. So now that I have addressed all of that and I know what to, I listen to my body. I do body scans. I do mental stuff to, when she want to do, when she want what she wants, she gets what she wants. Just like she likes Saturday morning cartoons. She watches SpongeBob on Saturday mornings.
Uh-huh.
I have to give it to her.
But it's funny you mentioned that because I remember I used to watch Jackie Chan's Adventure, and in fact, this
Mm,
wasn't that long ago. I mean, I think it was in the '90s, but you know, life got kind of busy, and I never had a chance to finish watching the entire series. Once I found it on, I think that was Freevee or Crackle. They
mm.
had like all the episodes. So even during the pandemic, I would if I get up on a Saturday morning, I would watch a couple of episodes. I would kind of binge watch a couple of episodes of it. But that was me giving space for that part of myself,
Exactly.
that inner child. And I even encourage people to think about the things that you did that you enjoyed as a child, whether it was
Yeah.
coloring, jumping rope,
Learn.
roller skating, hula hooping, playing jacks, marbles, riding your bicycle, swimming, fishing, whatever it was, and incorporate that in your life today. Do something to make that inner child happy. And again, in fact, and I even talk about it in my book. You can reparent yourself. You can have a second childhood.
Yes.
You
Yes, you
know,
can.
so what are your thoughts on that? Can somebody have a second childhood?
Yes, absolutely. Even if you have children yourself, when you are a parent who has your inner child acting up, bring your inner child out to play with your kids. They will love you for that. It's okay to be silly. A lot of times, we have been drilled to, okay, you got to be serious all the time. You're an adult now. You have to do adult things. Says who? There's a time and place for everything.
Right,
And you always give yourself space, grace, and time to be silly, to be childish. It's okay when the time is right.
right. You know, I I think at times we take ourselves too seriously, and because of that, we think other people should as well. And I know how important it is for us to keep our humanity front and center, because we're not always going to, if you can't laugh at yourself, I mean, because sometimes we say stuff, we do stuff that's silly, that's funny. If we can't laugh at ourselves, that means that we're too uptight and we are trying
Exactly.
to
To
actually
be
stay
perfect.
color within the lines.
Yes. And we are not perfect. We are human. We gonna mess up. Just pick yourself up and keep going. Work through it. It's okay. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay if you accidentally cuss when you're not supposed to. It's okay if you slip and fall and somebody saw you and point and laugh because I'm sure you'd have did the same thing if the tables were turned. It's okay.
Yeah,
We have to stop beating ourselves up so much for not being
yeah,
perfect
yeah.
because
And
nobody's perfect.
I think one of the hardest reasons it is for us to do that is because we haven't, again, made peace, with that part of ourselves.
Exactly.
So how does trauma show up in life and in relationships?
Triggers.
Triggers?
Something can trigger you. It could be a person, it could be a smell, it could be a color, it could be a phrase. You never know what it is until it happens. I was just telling someone a story about how I was in 10th grade and the substitute teacher put her finger in my face like that. And I told her if she didn't get her fucking finger out of my face, I was going to bite it off. And I don't even know where that came from. But later on in life, I had one of my chapter members point at me and shake her finger, and I didn't say anything to her, but I took her hand and put her finger down because that was triggering to me. And she came back later and was like, "Did I do something to offend you?" I said, "No, why?" Because I had forgotten about it. She said, "Well, you grabbed my finger really hard and put it down." I said, "Oh, my bad. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I apologize." And then I had to tell her why I don't like people pointing. So I don't point. That's a trigger for me. I don't like people pointing at me. Don't you point it? I used to didn't like people looking at me. I've gotten past looking at me. I got past that. Now just don't point at me. But even if I have to point, I'll do like the Vanna White thing. I don't just do yeah, I
Okay.
don't. So that's how it shows up. You never know until it shows up.
Yeah,
And that
yeah.
person
So
didn't know that I didn't like people pointing at me. She didn't know that, but she
yeah.
know now, and she know not to do it again. But you know,
Okay, all right. So, so what do you believe is the biggest obstacle to inner child healing?
denial. Us being in denial. Like I said, that's black
Ooh.
people shit. Black people
Okay,
don't
us
do that.
being in denial.
In denial. Yes, we are in denial. We are in
So
denial.
that,
A lot of us don't think mental health exists. Period. And it
mm,
does. You're being shown it every day, no matter who you are, where you come from, what you look like. It don't matter. We all have it. But being in denial that it can't happen to me, or not taking accountability and not being honest with yourself.
mm, yeah, yeah. I know how important it is for us to be honest, with ourselves. And I've come to understand that every major, in fact, religion has some kind of self-examination clause in it or principles in it. Um, which to
Like what?
me, huh?
Like what?
Well, love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Oh yeah, of course, yes.
You know, so but see the thing about it is a lot of people haven't really taken the time to really truly get to know themselves to the point to where they can. And I'm not talking about being or thinking more of yourself than you ought to, but just appreciating who you are. Because if you see your value, you can see value in other people. If I don't see my own value, I'm gonna have a real hard time seeing your value. And so,
Exactly. It's all about knowing who you are. You
yes,
can't. It's a and that's a lot. You about to get me on something else. That's going into relationships. We have people out here requiring things from other people that they can't even come to the table with.
that part, that part right there.
How do you expect me to come this way, this way, this way, this way, this way? What you coming with? Nothing.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's not right. That's why it's all within. You got to look within.
yeah. So, okay, so we've talked about what the biggest obstacle. But my question now is: do you think anybody can do inner child healing by themselves
Nope.
alone?
Nope.
Nope. Okay.
Nope.
Now, why do you take that opinion?
Because if they could, they would have done it.
Ooh, okay, I got you. I've had I've had a couple of my guests say that they can start it by themselves, but depending
Yeah.
upon the level of trauma, them finishing it, it would help if they had some type of assistance, or some type of guidance, like you talk about, even in fact with the journal.
Hmm.
Oftentimes we only go where it is comfortable. But one of the ladies that was on my podcast, Dr. Kathy Broughton Brown, she said healing hurts. And
It
it
does.
does.
Yes,
It does.
Lord.
You have to go through that process, but you have to deal with the hurt in order to get to the healing. And when she said that, I was reminded of when I had my total hip replacement, because I had one back in 2017.
Mm.
And when the physical therapist came in, he said something that was critical to my understanding as to what we were doing. He said, there's a difference between soreness and pain. He said, when I start moving you, you're going to be sore because of the surgery, but your mind is going to register it as pain. He said we have to push past the soreness so we can get the full range of motion. Because true enough, when he started moving my leg, I started feeling it felt like it felt before the surgery. But
Mm.
because he helped me to understand that there was that I had to push past that, I was able to go through that knowing that the healing part of it was going to hurt, but it was also going to get me to where I needed to be.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
would you have gathered that if you had done it on your own? You'd have felt
No, I
that
would
pain
not.
and you'd have stopped.
Exactly. Once I got to the pain, I would have stopped. And so
Hmm.
having that type of assistance, in that case, a physical therapist, but in the case of inner child healing, a trained professional that can help guide you through that process. And even when it's painful, even when it hurts, even when it doesn't feel comfortable, still encouraging you to push past that to the freedom, because that's what I really thought about when I had my hip replacement, about the mobility I was going to have on the other side of it, because I saw
Exactly.
what was happening without the surgery. I saw how limited. I could only walk. We had taken our middle daughter on a college tour, and they have you walk around the campus, and every time we stopped, I was looking for a place to sit down. I was looking for a place to sit down, and I was saying to myself, I cannot. This cannot be. I cannot go through life like this.
Hmm.
I knew that I wanted to be mobile. I wanted to be able to go and not be dependent on anybody else. So I tell that story to say that we have to look beyond our current hurt to the freedom that we can have once we heal from it. But it
Exactly.
has to be intentional,
Hmm.
because if it's not, we're not going to push ourselves. Again, in
Exactly.
fact, when it starts hurting, in fact, we're going to back up and we're going to back back. So my next question is, how can someone help someone else identify their struggle with inner child work?
Know who you're talking to. Don't just be asking anybody. I'm so
When you,
serious. You can't go ask your mama. Your mama don't know. Ask someone who has been there, done that, or is educated in that. And
right,
that's why
right,
it's so important. Why are you laughing? That's why it's so important to have a community and family. Even though we're adults, we still need a village. I still need a village. And I know if I need a village, I know y'all better need one. So
right,
that's you can't do it by yourself. That's why we
right,
have mentors, therapists, coaches, doctors. That's why we have these people in place with
right.
lived experience, learned experience, who can help you get to those hard places. Because when you get to the hard places, you're gonna stop trying to do it on your own.
Oh yeah.
It's,
And the reason I was laughing is because you said know who you're dealing with. And see, the question was kind of geared towards, if you see someone and you think that they are acting out of childhood trauma, something has triggered them. Because one of the guests on my podcast says, if it's hysterical, it's historical. Meaning that if they overreact to something, it wasn't that event triggers something else. And
Mhm.
so there are times when you have people that are acting out a trigger from a trauma and they don't realize it. And I
Right.
know that it's important to have a level of relationship with them to have those types of conversations. Now, of course, I'm not going to just go up to somebody in the grocery store, somebody at the gas station, somebody in the mall, and say, "Yeah, this is my trauma." You got but if you built that level of relationship with somebody, I I think it's actually helpful to be able to communicate to them your concerns, hopefully in a way that they are receptive to it and they can objectively take a look at it. So
They won't be because they know you. That's why you go to somebody you don't know. That's why I say it's not your mama, it ain't your friend, it ain't your cousin. It's gonna be
okay,
somebody you don't know. Because they ain't gonna
okay,
listen to you. I know good and well if my mama came and told me, I think you're traumatized, I'm gonna go off on her. So no.
not your mama, not your mama.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
I ain't say I was gonna cuss her out. But go to somebody who don't know you. It's
gotcha.
more people are more receptive when it's coming from someone who doesn't know you and someone who's trying to see it.
Oh, okay, okay.
Because not
All right,
everybody
so
can see it.
well, and and that's true. Um, a lot of people can't, and even if they do, being willing to talk about it that's a whole different story. One, being able to identify, but two, huh?
Mm. Yeah, they ain't gonna want to
Yeah,
talk about it.
yeah. Well, so, and this is the last question. How can people start the conversations about inner child trauma? I mean, yes, I say that you're not pointing out something to somebody else, but if you wanted to raise the level of awareness of this possibility of something in your life that's impacting you today, how can people start that conversation? Do you think they should start talking about themselves or something that they've discovered about themselves or maybe something they read or heard?
Start journaling, write it out,
Now,
write
of
it out.
course, of course, the journal queen, she said, write it out.
Of course,
Okay,
write it down. Write it
write it
down, make
down.
it plain. Because a lot of times when we're writing, we don't know what the hell we're writing. We're just writing. But when you write it
Yeah,
down and go back and look at it, it can answer a whole bunch of stuff. And then you're starting to be more self-aware. It's about being self-aware, and a lot of us aren't self-aware. So I would
yeah,
start, write it down. Do your research. Don't just go talking to anybody. Do your research. And don't
yes, sir.
assume because your homegirl from kindergarten and y'all still cool, gonna have your answers. They're not. The answers are inside of you. But don't go looking to your childhood friend. Go
Right,
to someone who knows what they're doing.
right. You know, I tell people that uh, it's not that we don't have the right answers; we're not asking the right questions.
Exactly.
And we'll ask questions of everybody else, but rarely do we ask questions of ourselves.
Because we don't
And
want to be
so
held accountable.
that, yes, yes, yes. But if we hold ourselves accountable, we'll find that it's easier for us to not only get to a better place in our own life, but then be able to help other people do the same. So,
Absolutely. Yes.
well,
It
listen,
starts with
if
us.
yes, it definitely starts with us. So, listen, if anybody wanted to connect with you, follow you, and I know I've actually included, in fact, your links in the post, but where can they find you?
You can find me at my website, ShawntiRefuge.com. And I put my handle here on the screen. That is my handle on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. You're going to find me with that name. My name is Shawnti Refuge.
Okay, all right. Well, Shante, in fact, we want to thank you so much for being on our podcast. And before we get out of here, I do have to play another episode, another commercial from our sponsor, none other than BetterHelp.
Their help.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who is trained to listen and give you helpful, unbiased advice. First, you go to their site. You can use my link, betterhelp.com/SaconiPrinceHeal. You answer a few questions, and BetterHelp will match you to a professional who's had years of experience helping people with struggles just like yours. You can do it all from your phone or your computer, via a phone call, a video chat, or messaging. However you feel most comfortable. It is the easiest possible way to start talking to a therapist. You'll be matched to a therapist usually within 48 hours, so you can get started fast. Let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist who can support you all from the comfort of your own home. Visit betterhelp.com/SaconiPrinceHeal or choose Saconi Prince Heal during your sign up and enjoy a special discount on your first month. Well, that does it for another episode of the H.E.A.L podcast, and we want to thank our guest, in fact, none other than Miss Refuge, for being a part of this amazing broadcast. Do you
Thank
have
you.
any final words, any parting words that you want to leave with our audience?
Absolutely. To anyone who may think they're struggling with, their mental health or their inner child, you got two people right here who know what they're doing. Reach out. And if we can't help you, we can send you to someone who can. Period. You have no excuse. No excuses. It's time to get yourself right so you can be right for those you are serving.
That's it. That's it. Well, again, we want to thank you for joining, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode of the H.E.A.L podcast. We'll talk to you later. Bye.